Hello and welcome to Tobisonics. It is Tuesday, the 29th of June, 2021. I hope you all had good weekends and the weeks have been kind to you. In this week's episode, we're going to take a look at how I used Arturia Pigments as the feature instrument in my new single, All the Little Things. According to Arturia's website, Pigments is a state-of-the-art software instrument that gives you the power of every shade of synthesis. From colorful sound engines, effortless modulation, professional utilities, and studio-grade effects, explore an infinite spectrum of sound. We're going to be taking a deep dive into how I use Pigments to create the feature voices in my new single, All the Little Things. And because we're doing it that way, it's not going to be a comprehensive demo or review of everything that Pigments can do. If that's what you're looking for, then you're going to have to move along. Go on now, move along. But if you're looking for an example of how an artist used Pigments in a tangible, real-world production that's out there in the marketplace, then this is the video for you. Before we get into it, if I could just ask you to like this video and subscribe to my channel, that would really help me out. Thanks for taking the time. First up, the lead synth in the second verse. Right now, we're listening to Pigments as it sounds in the production before the track is mixed and mastered. The lead synth is based on a preset called Toto. So I've loaded up the default of that preset. Let's go through the changes that I made step by step so that you guys can hear the difference. And you'll notice right off the bat, I'm really not doing that much at all to it. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Most of the work is done over in the macro section with the timbre control. And this for me is a real highlight of Pigments as a synth, is that you can do so much with such an easy, intuitive control, and you can really kind of twist and tone and kind of texture. And then the only thing I did really is just turn off the effects. Now, why did I do that? Because I wanted a nice chunky lead synth straight down the middle. As for the compressor specifically, personally, I like to leave as much dynamics as possible so that my mix engineer has room to work. But we haven't finished with the lead synth just yet. We've got a couple of extra plugins that we need to throw into the mix. We've got ourselves a Pro Q2 and we've got the Waves one knob pumper. First up, we added the Pro Q2 on a linear phase setting just to take out some of those lows. Now, it does make the Toto feel a little bit thinner, but it's really going to help. The bass and the kick cut through the mix. Then we added the Waves one knob pumper, and I gotta say, I really like this plugin. It's incredibly simple to use. It's just adding a little bit of movement and pulse to the synth. I particularly like it in the sustain, just adds that little bit of extra interest. Finally, let's take a look at the various layers that I've added to the Toto to give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more shift, a little bit more movement. First up, we've got a fifth up dub, and then we have two effects channels, which I've actually created again just by duplicating the synth. We have the Orbitron, which is being fed by the fifth up dub, and then we have Echo Boy, which is being fed by the original Toto, and then Echo Boy is being sent through a stock auto pan. First up, we added the fifth up dub, and what it's doing for me is it's just giving it a little bit of extra top, and it's creating an interesting kind of tonal variation in there. Then we have United Plugins Orbitron, which is being fed by the fifth up dub. This is acting as kind of an alternative to reverb. It's giving us some depth and some shift, but it's doing it for me in a way that's a little cleaner. And finally, we have tried and true. It's Echo Boy being fed by the original Toto, and that's going in to our Steinberg auto pan. And that's just giving us a little bit of width and movement, and it's also adding a little bit more depth to the track. Alright then, let's have a listen to how Arturia Pigments sounds in the full production. I'm going to bring in the instruments one at a time so you guys can hear the production build up around Pigments. And you can hear that timbre adjustment that we made is allowing the Toto to sit nicely within the instruments. It's particularly contrasting with that crystal kind of effect that keeps coming up. We've got that kind of very definite kind of punchy sound down the middle by just taking out those onboard effects. We've also preserved the dynamics of it by just taking out that compressor as well. And then you can hear that the bass and the kick is sitting quite nicely because we took out the low from the Toto. And those additional control layers and shift and movement that when we heard them on their own, they sounded a little bit raw. They kind of stood up a little bit. They were a little bit too audible. But once you put them into the production, they're just giving that little bit of movement, and it sits the toto really nice. It's not kind of right up front. The snare's kind of punching up in front of it, and the crystal thing is coming up above it and kind of in front of it, but it's just sitting it nicely there. It gives a nice depth to the production. So first up, let's start with a quick confession on my part. I was also going to do a breakdown of the step acid synth, but the video was already kind of long enough, and I felt like I'd sort of talked about what I wanted to talk about, which was using Arturia Pigments in a production. As I said at the top of the video, this was in no way meant to be a demo of Arturia Pigments, and I think I've been true to my word on that. This was in no way a demo of Arturia Pigments. What I wanted to show you guys is how I use it in my own production, how I use additional effects and layers around it to help sit it in the production, and what it's giving to my production. For me, what Arturia have successfully managed to do with Pigments is they've given you a virtual instrument that has an incredible range of customization. But for me personally, it's not actually the customization options that sells Pigments. What sells it is the physicality of it, the texture of it. It's got this fantastic timbre to it. It's got this real chunky kind of bit and kind of feeling to it. It also has this retro, but at the same time, very modern feel to it. It's perfect for bringing a dash of vintage flavor, but in a way that suits and sits well within a modern pop production. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out. Thank you for taking the time. If you'd like to hear today's production in context, All the Little Things is out on all streaming platforms and Bandcamp right now. Please check it out. If you have any questions about the production, feel free to ask them in the comments below, or you can find me on social media at Tobisonics. Thank you so much for watching, and until next Tuesday, good night and good noise, stay safe and stay healthy.